following program is a Township of Franklin and Rosa production presentation.
I received your letter recently about reevaluation. I would like to know more about it and what happens next.
If I have questions regarding this revaluation, who should I call?
If my property is valued at $60,000 and then when they reevaluate and it's $90,000, does that mean my tax is going up 1.5 times?
My assessment has doubled. Now, are my taxes going to double?
Does the reevaluation apply to everybody? What I want to know is, are my taxes going to automatically go up because of this revaluation?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special presentation of the Township of Franklin. I'm your host, Eric Herr, and during the next few minutes, we'll be answering the questions you just heard, plus many others. And to do that is Township Administrator, Mr. Ed Sastelli, and also Mr. Joe Harasta, Tax Assessor. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being on the program.
Thanks, Eric.
It might be a good idea for starters, Ed, to just give an overview as to exactly what a Township Administrator does.
Sure, Eric. In Franklin, we have a Township Committee form of government, whereby the residents in the community elect 5 individuals to serve as the Township Committee, which we refer to as the governing body. They serve in a part-time capacity, meeting twice a month at open public meetings to set the course of the Township, make policy, ordinances, resolutions. They also appoint a full-time administrator to see to the day-to-day operations of the Township and to ensure that the policies that they enact get carried out on a day-to-day basis.
A business manager, in short.
Yes.
And Joe, just give our audience a sense as to exactly what a tax assessor does.
Sure, Eric. The work of the tax assessor is promulgated by the State Division of Taxation through the County Board. And what we do basically is list all the land and property within the Township of Franklin. And when we list it, we place a fair and equitable value on it, primarily for the purposes of taxation. In addition, we manage other things such as property tax deductions for veterans, senior citizens, etc.
Now, for the purpose of this program, gentlemen, we're talking about revaluation. And why do we need to have revaluation, Ed?
Well, the Township really doesn't have any say into it at all. The State Division of Taxation orders municipalities, like Franklin, to do the revaluations when the ratio of assessed value of a property to its market value reaches a certain point. They require us to do it, and that's what happened in this case. We were ordered to do it.
Now, Joe, explain that ratio and exactly what all of that means.
What we mean by market value is basically the sales price that a person could sell their property for, or their house. We call that a fair market value. And in the state of New Jersey, for taxation purposes, all property should be valued or assessed at current market value. And that's what a revaluation does. It really brings everybody's property into current market value where everyone is paying their fair share, and it's an equitable distribution of taxes.
In this revaluation process, does that absolutely mean that my taxes will go up, or is that not necessarily the case?
That's not necessarily the case, but it's a good question because a lot of folks assume that because their assessment went up, their taxes are going to go up. I'd like to state it this way, that the Township only has to raise a certain amount of money to fund the municipal budget. And it changes a little bit from year to year, and it depends on other agencies that we also collect taxes for, like school boards and counties and fire districts. But basically, we have a certain amount of money we need to raise. And whether the assessments change doesn't affect how much money we need to collect to run the government. I think a better way to look at it is the goal of this thing is to have a fair and equitable distribution so that everybody's assessment is equal to what they could sell their house for, which would be their market value.
Now, from your perspective, Joe, let's talk about this distribution aspect a little bit more in depth.
What we learned from this last revaluation was that the vacant land has gained value faster than houses and farms. And so what that means is that the value of the vacant land, which is really attributable to developments and this kind of thing, is going to take a larger share of the property taxes going forward. And so that way, again, a more fair distribution as a result of revaluation, a benefit of revaluation.
In fact, Eric, I'd like to piggyback on Joe's comment. I ran the preliminary assessment numbers as we have them so far, as it would apply to the 98 budget, because we don't know what the 99 budget or tax rate is going to be yet. Sure. We'll get to that later in the show. But as it relates to the 98 budget, 8 out of every 10 residential property owners their tax rate either stayed the same or went down based on the 98 budget. And out of all the classifications, including the farmland and vacant land, 7 out of every 10 parcels stayed the same or went down.
Which basically is a reflection of what was said in the letter that all the residents got.
Yes, that's correct. That was in the letter, and I want to stress the fact to the residents that again, was based on if we had used their new assessment in the 1998 budget. That's not a reflection of what their tax rate's going to be in 1999. As I alluded to in the last answer, the 1999 tax rates depend on many other factors in addition to just the revaluation and the Township of Franklin. The Delsey Regional School District sets their own budget. The local elementary school sets their own budget. The County Board of Freeholders set their own budget, and the fire district set their own budget. Once those are set, they get collected by the township, but again, we have no say in that. And that's why we can't predict what their 99 tax rate's going to be.
Now, it might be interesting to show our audience exactly what we mean and how some of the distribution is apportioned. Let's take a look at this graphic.
This graphic shows you exactly how your tax dollar breaks down. You can see that 27 cents of each dollar goes to the Delsey Regional School District, 24 cents goes to the local elementary school district, 23 cents goes to Gloucester County, only 22 cents goes towards running your municipal government, and the remaining 4 cents goes to run the fire districts. All of these components together comprise your tax rate.
And Ed, I think what's really interesting to note is the fact that only 22 cents of every dollar goes to fund municipal government, or in this case, the Township of Franklin.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, Joe, does reevaluation, or revaluation as the case may be, affect everybody?
Well, yes, it does. It affects all property owners in the Township of Franklin. And what it does, again, is to bring everybody to an equal assessment or current market value. And of course, as we said before, the major items that are noted in any evaluation are location, size, condition. And there are other things that affect a value, of course.
Give us some examples, for example, things that might increase the value and things that might keep it about the same.
For example, items that may increase the value or will increase the value are new garages, new porches, new decks. Things that don't affect or will not increase your value would be replacement items, or items such as a replacement of a heater, replacement of a roof, and these kind of maintenance items.
So what you're saying basically is that if I have a heater that needs to be replaced, and I get that replaced, that won't really affect my value.
That is correct. Not in the assessment value. We do not change it.
Joe, you bring out some very interesting points, and thanks very much for sharing that information with us. When we come back, we'll talk about exactly who is responsible for determining property values in just a moment. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this special program presented to you by the Township of Franklin. I'm your host, Eric Herr, and in case you're just joining us, we're talking about revaluation and precisely what it means to you and how it affects you. And here to join us for this particular segment is Mr. Joe Robinson, who is Vice President of Vital Resources Incorporated, and of course back with us is Township Administrator Mr. Ed Sastelli. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure.
And thanks for joining us, I guess, more correctly I should say.
Appreciate being here.
Joe, give us a sense as to exactly what Vital Computer Resources Incorporated does.
Vital Computer services local governments in New Jersey, throughout the state of New Jersey, and as far as tax equalization or revaluation programs, we're quite familiar with the South Jersey area, having completed such projects in Monroe, Washington, Deptford, Woodbury, etc. So we do know the South Jersey real estate market quite well.
Now, Ed, you engaged Vital Resources, or Vital Computer Resources Incorporated, to do this revaluation aspect. And I think it's an important point to note two things. Number one, that you aren't directly involved with the process itself. And number two, that Vital had to establish themselves as credible in the marketplace in order for them to perform these services. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a good question, and we get asked that frequently. And there's really a dual answer. We do not do the revaluation, but the township is responsible, as the state law says, to hire a licensed and certified revaluation company to do that. So we started with a painstaking search. The township committee talked to other mayors, other committee members, other administrators and tax assessors all across South Jersey to try to come up with who had the best reputation in South Jersey, who had the most experience doing revaluations in South Jersey, and Vital Computer Resources kept coming up as having the most experience and, most importantly, having the best record of being responsive to the customer's needs and customer service after the assessment was done and coming in to talk with them and trying to resolve issues. That's why we chose Vital.
Walk us through the process, Joe. Tell us exactly what the revaluation process is.
Well, Eric, starting from the beginning, every property owner gets a letter from us stating that the project is underway. We have data collectors go out and inspect their property, measure it, annotate the amenities within the property. While that's going on, an analysis of sales is being done. And once the conclusion of that we've concluded the value to a property, we then send the property owner a letter of value. And at that time, we give them the opportunity to come in and discuss with us why they feel the value should be lower, or in some cases should be higher.
Now, if that is the case, what recourse would a property owner have?
Well, after the informal review with us, we will send the property owner a second notice telling them the results of the informal review. If they're not satisfied at that time, they will have until April 1st of 1999 to appeal to the county tax board in Gloucester County.
So there is a deadline involved here.
Yes, April 1st. Anytime before April 1st, they can appeal our value to the county tax board.
Now, what would the average person need to show the county tax board in order to make their argument?
Well, I would think what they should do is, if they had a recent appraisal of their property where their recent appraisal is lower than ours, or they should go to a realtor and have maybe what they call a CMA, comparative market analysis done, and that may convince the county tax board to lower their assessment. However, they should be talking about market value of their home and not the effect of the taxes. The county tax board will not render a judgment just because someone's property taxes have increased.
Mm-hmm. Now, there might be some refinancing involved or appraising involved and so forth. Maybe you could just give us some examples of where that would come in.
Well, if a property owner has recently refinanced their property, they have a good indication as to what their value of their property is, and that's certainly an indicator that even at the time of the informal review, if they brought it to our attention, it would be something we would look at, and it would also be something that the County Board of Taxation would look at in rendering a judgment.
Joe, thanks very much for sharing that information. I'm sure a lot of that is information a lot of people might not have realized. We're going to be taking a break in just a moment, but before we do, Ed, I'd like to ask if you have any thoughts to piggyback onto what Joe was saying.
Yes, the one comment I would like to make is for those folks who think they want to file an appeal and go to the county tax board, they really need to focus on the market value of their property, not how much their assessment went up, not how much their taxes are, but what is the market value of that property, what could they sell that property for in the open market, and that value should be very close to the assessed value of the property.
Very good. And we'll be right back in just a minute. We hope you'll stay with us, too, when we have more from the Township of Franklin.
I got my assessment letter in the mail, and the assessment went up over $40,000. Is that going to raise my taxes?
I would like to know how the reevaluation is going to affect the senior citizens.
When does this reevaluation take effect?
Who is responsible for determining the new value of my home, and who do I speak to if I disagree with it?
And thanks very much, everyone, for joining us once again. I'm your host, Eric Herr. This is a special presentation of the Township of Franklin. For the purpose of this show, we're speaking about revaluation and, more importantly, what it means to you. And joining us once again is Mr. Joe Harasta, who is the tax assessor here in Franklin Township, and as well as the Township Administrator, Mr. Ed Sastelli. Joe, for the purpose of clarification, just tell us some of the benefits of revaluation.
The benefits of the revaluation is to bring everybody into a position where they're only paying their fair share, and it's an equitable distribution of taxes. So, in effect then, that was the purpose, and that's what we accomplished.
Now, this won't be as extensive a process the next time through, will it?
No, it will not. Fortunately, we were able to implement a modern computer system to enable us to look at what revaluation needs are in the future, and we'll be able to do it in-house without doing on-site inspections in a mass method.
Now, Ed, I think it's an important point to bring up now, too, that people really in this whole process of revaluation should compare their property values at current market levels. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's a very good point, and that's one of the points that I wanted to close with, is that I'd like to stress, if residents feel their assessed value is not equal to their market value, then I encourage them to follow the appeal process that we've outlined, and that we're going to have a slide to show them the name and number they can contact. But in addition to that appeal, I also want to stress that by state law, the township officials are not permitted to be involved in that appeal process. Elected officials, the township committee, myself as the administrator, or any other local official. It has to be done from Vital's value directly to the County Board of Taxation.
And that's why Vital was brought into the process in the first place.
Yes. Now, this dollar graphic shows that over 50% of your tax dollar goes to support the school systems. 23% supports Gloucester County. Only 22% of it supports the municipal services delivered by the township. And the remaining 4.5% goes to fund the fire districts.
And again, Ed, I think it's important to bring out the fact that it's 22% or 22 cents on the dollar that goes to fund all the services that the Township of Franklin provide.
Yes, that's correct.
Gentlemen, thanks very much for being on the program and conveying some very, very important information. And thank you for staying with us here on this special presentation of the Township of Franklin. By the way, if you have any questions, you can call the number on your screen. Meanwhile, for all of us here with the Township of Franklin and Rosa Productions, I'm Eric Herr.